It's late. You hear a sound, a soft scratching noise, something moving. You freeze. What is it? It's nighttime. You notice a strange scratch. You pause. Something is shifting. You tense up. Any idea what's happening? Your phone should be on the nightstand. You reach out. It's gone. Panic rises. The sound continues. You think your phone is near the bed. You reach out. It's missing. You feel nervous. The noise goes on. Light on. Eyes scan the room. Your cat, sitting there, staring at you. A guilty look. Your phone? You switch on the lamp. You look around. The cat is there. It looks at you. It seems caught. Where's your phone? There. On the floor, beside the bed. The little thief knocked it down. You sigh. Crisis over. You spot it on the carpet, right next to the bed. The furry culprit pushed it. You breathe relief. Situation solved. Where else could something fall beside the bed? A book, a glass of water, maybe your sock. What else might drop next to the bed? Maybe a novel, your drink, or even a random sock. You might say, I lost my charger. It's probably beside the bed. Or check beside the bed. One might say, I can't find my charger. Maybe it's right next to the bed. Or look beside the bed. A meeting. Serious faces, budget cuts, layoffs, tension in the air, every word matters. Picture a conference. Stressed people, cost reductions, job losses, pressure is high. Each sentence is crucial. A hand goes up. What about the coffee machine? Silence. Eyes narrow. Someone coughs. Someone raises a question. Should we fix the coffee maker? No one speaks. People glare. Somebody clears a throat. The manager sighs. That's beside the point. We're talking about jobs, not coffee. The boss exhales. That's not related. We're discussing positions, not drinks. Have you ever heard someone say something completely beside the point? Have you noticed someone bring up an off-topic idea during an important discussion? Maybe you're arguing with a friend. You never listen to me. And they say, but you forgot my birthday. Imagine you're upset at a friend. You say, you ignore me. Then the friend says, you didn't remember my birthday. You might reply, that's beside the point. I'm talking about something else. You might respond, that isn't relevant. I'm referring to a different issue. Words matter. Sometimes what we say fits. Sometimes it's beside the point. What we speak can be on track or might be off topic. Both happen. Have you ever had to bring someone back to the real topic? Have you ever guided a person to stay focused on the main subject? Where did these phrases come from? Let's step back in time. Wondering about these expressions? Let's look back to older days. Beside comes from Old English. It meant by the side of. Simple, clear. The word beside has Old English roots. It originally pointed to at the side. Easy to understand. Over time, people used it to place things. The book is beside the table. Still clear. Through the years, it described where items are. You see the book near the table? The idea stayed obvious. Then language got creative. People started using beside the point in debates. Later, people became imaginative. They said off the key issue during arguments. Imagine an archer, a target, a bullseye. A perfect shot means hitting the center. Picture a bow shooter. There's a target circle. Hitting the middle is a flawless aim. But what if you miss? Your arrow lands far away. Off target, beside the point. But if you fail the bullseye, your arrow lands aside, not the mark, not the real focus. That's how the phrase grew. If your argument misses the real issue, it's like missing the target. That idea evolved. If your statement doesn't address the main matter, it's just like shooting wide. So, beside the bed means something is right there, next to it. So, right by the bed indicates an item is placed close to your bed. And beside the point means something is far from what really matters. Meanwhile, not on topic suggests your thought isn't connected to the real subject. Interesting, right? Have you ever used these phrases in real life? Pretty neat, huh? Have you personally said these expressions in everyday situations? Imagine coming home after a long day. You step inside ready to relax, but something feels off. Think about walking into your place after hours of work. You arrive hoping to unwind, yet something unusual is happening. The floor is covered in shredded paper. You freeze, your heart sinks. You recognize the pieces, your tax documents. You see torn paper all over the ground. You stop, feeling panic. You notice it's your important tax forms. Your dog sits proudly in the middle of the mess. He wags his tail, happy, innocent. But you are beside yourself. Your dog is right there in the center, looking pleased and clueless. Meanwhile, you feel overwhelmed by shock and anger. You don't know if you should scream, cry, or just sit down in defeat. How could he do this? You can't decide whether to yell, burst into tears, or just give up. Why would he destroy your papers? He tilts his head as if asking, "Did I do something wrong?" You might say, "I am beside myself right now." He cocks his head like he's wondering, "Is there a problem?" You might reply, "I can't handle my emotions right now." This phrase means you're so full of emotion, you don't know what to do. Could be anger, could be sadness, even joy. That expression shows you're bursting with feelings and not sure how to react. It might be fury, sorrow, or even happiness. Like when someone wins the lottery and jumps up and down screaming. He's beside himself with excitement. Picture someone hitting the jackpot and leaping around shouting with joy. He is overwhelmed by excitement. Or when you lose your keys 5 minutes before an important meeting. She was beside herself with stress. Or imagine losing your keys right before a big appointment. She was so stressed she couldn't think straight. Have you ever been beside yourself? What happened? Did you laugh later or was it serious? Have you ever felt so emotional that you lost your cool? What caused it? Did it become funny later or stay serious? Now, imagine a different situation. A first date. Everything is going well. The guy seems normal until he speaks. Now picture another scenario. You're on a first date and things look promising. The man seems fine until he starts talking. "I collect toenail clippings," he says. You laugh. He must be joking, right? He announces, "I save toenail trimmings." You chuckle, assuming he's not serious. Could he be? "I keep them in jars by year." Your smile fades. He's serious. You start thinking about an excuse to leave. He continues, "I store them in containers and label them by date." Your grin disappears and he means it. You begin searching for a quick way out. Then he adds, "Oh, and besides that, I also collect dead insects." Then he mentions, "Oh, and I also keep old bugs in jars." You pick up your bag. "Well, it was nice meeting you." You grab your things and say, "It was interesting meeting you." Besides, that is a way to add extra information, like, "The food was great." Besides that, the service was fast. This term helps you include more details. For example, "The dinner tasted amazing. Also, the staff was quick." Or, "She's a doctor. Besides that, she writes books." It's neutral, just another fact, nothing shocking. Or, "She works as a doctor. On top of that, she's an author." It's just another piece of info, nothing wild. But sometimes the extra fact makes everything worse, like in this date story. The first fact was weird. The second, worse. But sometimes an added detail makes the situation more uncomfortable, like in this date example. The first fact was odd, the next even stranger. Have you ever heard a sentence start normal, then take a turn? "The trip was fun. Besides that, I lost my passport." Have you ever heard someone begin a normal story, then drop a bombshell? "I had a great vacation. Then I found out my passport went missing." What's a situation where you could use besides that? Can you think of a moment where you'd add an extra fact like that? Let's change the scene again. Imagine being on a deserted island. You have food, but only one kind: coconuts. Now switch the setting again. You're stuck on a lonely island. There is food, but just one type: coconuts. Morning, coconut water. Afternoon, coconut meat. Evening, coconut soup. Every day, the same thing. In the morning, you drink coconut juice. Later, you eat the soft part. At night, you have coconut stew. It never changes. At first, it's okay, but after weeks, you look at a coconut and sigh, I have nothing besides coconuts. In the beginning, it's not so bad. But after many days, you stare at a coconut and groan, I only have these and nothing else. This phrase means only this and nothing else, like the fridge is empty, nothing besides old milk and ketchup. This term shows there is just one option available. For instance, there's nothing in the fridge except sour milk and ketchup. Or she's not interested in anything besides work. It's about limits, no extra options, no variety. Or she only cares about her job and ignores everything else. It's about boundaries, no other choices. At first, having nothing besides one thing might not seem bad, but over time, it can drive you crazy. At first, relying on one thing might not look terrible, but after a while, it can make you lose your mind. Can you imagine eating the same meal every day? What food could you survive on forever? Think about having the exact same dish daily. Which food could you keep eating endlessly? Or think about a job where you do nothing besides paperwork. How long would you last? Or consider a position where all you do is forms and documents. How quickly would you give up? So we've seen 3 different ways to use beside and besides. One for extreme emotions, one for adding details. We've looked at 3 ways to use beside or besides. One talks about strong feelings, another adds extra points. And one for when there's nothing else. Each meaning is different, but they all show limits in some way. And another covers a situation with no other possibilities. Each usage is different, but all show some kind of boundary. Being beside yourself, your emotions take over. No space for calm thinking. Feeling beside yourself, you're overwhelmed by emotion, leaving no room for logic. Saying besides that, adding one more fact, maybe good, maybe bad. Saying also or in addition, you're adding more info, could be helpful or troublesome. Having nothing besides, no options, only one thing. Having nothing else, you're stuck with just one choice, no alternatives. Can you think of a moment when you could use each of these? Can you remember a time when each meaning would fit in your life? You're in a job interview. The boss looks at your resume, then at you. Tell me about your skills. Picture yourself at a hiring meeting. The employer reviews your CV, then turns to you and says, share what you're good at. You list them confidently. I can code, speak 3 languages, and juggle. He nods but doesn't look impressed. You proudly mention your abilities. I write software, I speak 3 languages, and I juggle. He listens but doesn't seem wowed. He asks, what else besides? You pause. That's a tough one. What more do you have? He says, what more can you offer? You hesitate, unsure if you have extra skills to mention. Then you remember, I can also solve a Rubik's Cube in 10 seconds. Now he leans forward, interested. Suddenly you recall another talent. I'm able to finish a Rubik's Cube in 10 seconds. This detail grabs his attention. Sometimes people want more. One skill isn't enough. What else besides? Means they're asking for extra, for something that stands out. Often others expect additional abilities. A single talent might not satisfy them. When someone says, what else can you do? They want something unique. You could say, he asked me what else besides my degree I could offer. You might explain, he wanted to know what extra knowledge I had beyond my diploma. Now imagine something different. You're in an elevator with your childhood crush. The doors close. Next scenario, you find yourself in a lift with the person you adored as a kid. The doors shut. You open your mouth to speak, but nothing comes out. Your brain is frozen. Panic sets in. You try to talk, but your voice fails. Your mind goes blank, and you feel anxiety rising. The silence grows. You can't do anything besides stand there and smile awkwardly. There's no sound at all. You have no choice but to remain still and give a nervous grin. Your crush glances at you, waiting, but you just stare at the floor. The doors open. Chance lost. That special person looks your way, expecting words. You only look down. The elevator opens. Opportunity gone. This phrase means you have no choice but to do one thing. Sometimes that's just standing still. Here, it implies there's only a single action available. Sometimes that action is simply not moving. You could say, I can't do anything besides wait for him to call. You might say, I have no option but to wait until he phones. Now picture a cold winter night. You're sitting beside the fire, wrapped in a warm blanket. Envision a frosty evening. You're right by the fireplace, covered in a snug blanket. The wind howls outside, but here, it's cozy. You sip your hot cocoa, feeling safe and at peace. A fierce wind blows outdoors, but you're warm in the spot. You drink your cocoa and feel calm. Your friend is roasting marshmallows. One slips into the fire. He watches it burn. Your buddy is toasting sweets on a stick. One drops into the flames, and he sees it go up in smoke. A sacrifice to the fire gods, he says. You both laugh. He jokes, that's our gift for the flames, and you share a laugh. Being beside the fire means warmth, safety, comfort. It's a place where stories are told. Sitting close to the hearth brings heat, protection, and ease. It's where people swap tales. You might say, we sat beside the fire talking all night. You could say, we stayed next to the fireplace and chatted until morning. Look at the difference. Beside means next to. Besides means in addition to. Close, but not the same. Notice the contrast. Beside is about being close to something, while besides is about having something extra. They look similar, but their uses differ. In the job interview, what else besides asks for more skills. In the elevator, I can't do anything besides means no other option. During the work meeting, what more can you do? Is a request for extra abilities. In the lift, I can't do anything else signals there is just one possible action. And in the cold night, beside the fire is where you feel safe. And on that chilly evening, staying next to the flames gives you security. So where and when would you use these words? Think about it. So ask yourself, in what situation do you need beside for location? And how do you say in addition without confusion? Reflect on it. Imagine your grandmother. Maybe she bakes cookies, knits sweaters, and tells old stories. But what if she's more than that? Picture your grandma. Maybe she makes sweet treats, crafts comfy scarves, and shares stories from long ago, but consider if she does even more than that. Meet Margaret. She's 80, but don't let her age fool you. Besides being a master baker, she rides a motorcycle and plays poker like a pro. Say hello to Margaret. She is 80, but don't underestimate her. Not only is she an amazing baker, she also zooms around on a motorbike and deals cards like an expert. Last week, she won a tournament against men half her age. They laughed at first, then she took their money. Just a week ago, she beat younger opponents in a poker contest. They joked about her at the start, but she left them broke. One guy shook his head and said, "I can't believe it." Margaret just smiled. One man was shocked and said, "No way." Margaret only grinned. You might say, "Wow, besides being a baker, she's a champion player too." You might exclaim, "Whoa, she's not only a top baker, but also a winner at the card table." Where else could you use this? Think of someone who surprises you. Where else can this idea fit? Picture a person who amazes you. A friend who is an artist besides being a teacher. A neighbor who's a poet besides being a firefighter. Maybe you have a friend who paints pictures and also teaches classes. Or a neighbor who writes poems and fights fires too. It shows that someone has unexpected skills. It adds depth, because people are rarely just one thing. This shows a person can have surprising talents. It makes them more interesting. After all, people usually have more than one side. You're sleeping. Then, crash! Your eyes fly open. Heart pounding, you grab a flashlight. You are asleep when, bang! Your eyes snap open. Your heart is racing and you reach for a flashlight. You creep toward the noise. It came from the kitchen. You shine the light. And there, beside the door, sits your cat. Proud, next to a shattered vase. You quietly walk toward the sound. It came from the kitchen. You point your light around, and near the door is your cat, looking very pleased right by a broken vase. You groan. Really? The cat blinks slowly as if saying, yes, really. You sigh. Seriously? The cat just blinks like it's saying, of course. You might say, I found the cat beside the door looking guilty. You could explain, I saw the cat right by the door and it looked like it knew it did something wrong. Think about it. How often do you say next to something? The keys are beside the TV. She stood beside me in line. Leave your shoes beside the mat. Ask yourself, how many times do you say next to something? The keys are near the TV. She waited right by me in the queue. Put your shoes close to the mat. Beside is simple, but without it, how would we explain where things are? It's a small word that makes a big difference. Beside is easy to use, but if we did not have it, we might struggle to show where objects are. This small word changes a lot. It's early morning. The lake is still. The air is fresh. You're fishing, waiting. Nothing bites. It's just after dawn. The water is calm and the breeze feels clean. You sit with your fishing rod hoping for a catch. But nothing happens. Your friend sighs and pulls out a sandwich. Then, splash! A fish jumps straight into his lap. Your buddy lets out a breath and takes out a sandwich. Suddenly, splash! A fish leaps right onto his legs. You both freeze. Did that really just happen? Your friend holds up the fish. Guess lunch is served. You both stand still, shocked. Did that actually happen? Your friend lifts the fish and says, well, I guess we have lunch now. You might say, I was sitting beside the lake when the craziest thing happened. You could say, I was right by the lake and then something totally wild took place. Like beside the door, this tells us where something is. Beside the lake means right next to it. But it's not just about place. It creates an image. Just like beside the door, this shows a location. Being beside the lake means you are right at the water's edge. But it also paints a picture in your mind. Think of moments when you were beside something important. Beside a friend in need. Beside a loved one in a special moment. Remember times when you stood close to something meaningful. Next to a friend who needed help. Next to someone dear in a big moment. Beside doesn't just describe location. It connects. Where we stand matters. Beside is not only about where you are. It links people together. Your position is important. Imagine walking into a fancy restaurant. The lights are dim, soft jazz is playing, and the waiter approaches your table with a grand smile. Picture yourself stepping into an elegant dining spot. It's dimly lit, gentle music fills the air, and the server greets you with a warm grin. Tonight we offer the finest steak, he says. It is aged to perfection, cooked with Himalayan salt and bathed in truffle butter. He looks at you and announces, we've got a top-quality steak tonight. It's matured just right, sprinkled with special salt, and finished in rich truffle butter. You nod, impressed. Then he adds, And all that, and besides, it comes with a complimentary dessert. You show you're pleased, and he continues, plus there's a free dessert thrown in with everything else. Would you expect a free dessert after such a luxurious meal? Probably not. But that's what all that and besides means. Everything great, plus a little extra. You wouldn't normally think a fancy dinner includes a no-cost sweet treat, right? That's exactly what all that and besides is lots of good stuff, plus a bonus. You might say, this phone has a great camera, a long battery life, and all that, and besides, it's waterproof. For instance, you could say, this phone takes clear pictures, lasts a long time, and even keeps working if it gets wet. Where could you use this phrase? Maybe when talking about a job, a vacation, or even a person with many talents. Think about where you might want to use it, maybe describing a job, a holiday plan, or someone who's really skilled at many things. Now, imagine you're selling your old car. A buyer inspects it carefully. Visualize putting your used car on the market. The potential buyer takes a close look at everything. Any issues? He asks. You hesitate. Well, the brakes squeak a little. He wants to know if anything's wrong. You pause and reply, the brakes make a slight noise. Anything else? He presses. You sigh. Besides that, the AC is broken. The radio only plays static, and sometimes the car won't start unless you whisper encouraging words. He pushes for more. You finally admit, well, the air conditioning doesn't work, the radio's all fuzzy, and sometimes I have to talk nicely to the engine for it to start. The buyer's face falls. Maybe he expected just one small issue, but besides that means there's more. The buyer looks disappointed. He might have thought there was only one tiny problem, but that phrase shows there's a whole list. You could say, I love my job. It pays well. Besides that, my coworkers are great. For example, you might say, I really like my work. The salary is good. On top of that, my teammates are fantastic. Or, the movie was funny. Besides that, the soundtrack was amazing. Another example, the film had lots of laughs. Also, the music was incredible. It's a way to add more information, sometimes good, sometimes bad. It helps you share extra details, whether they're positive or negative. Now, let's step into a crowded theater. A magician is about to perform his most dangerous trick. Picture a packed theater where a magician is preparing for his most risky stunt. He will escape a tank filled with sharks. The audience is silent, holding their breath. He plans to break free from a water tank full of sharks. Everyone goes quiet, hardly breathing. Suddenly, someone in the crowd shouts, "Wait! Aren't sharks saltwater creatures? How do they survive in a tank?" Then somebody yells out, "Hang on. Sharks need salty water. How can they stay alive in that tank?" The magician glares. "That is completely beside the point," he snaps. The magician looks irritated and says, "That detail isn't important right now." What does this mean? It means the question is not important to the situation. The sharks, real or not, don't change the trick. So what's he saying? He means the question doesn't matter here. Whether the sharks are genuine or not, it doesn't affect the act. You might say, we're discussing the budget. Your vacation plans are beside the point. You might use it like this. We're talking about the money situation. Your holiday ideas don't really apply. Or, the weather is bad, but that's beside the point. We have to go. Or you could say, yes, it's stormy outside, but that's not the main concern. We still need to leave. When something is beside the point, it means it's not relevant. It doesn't matter in that moment. If something is beside the point, it's unrelated to the main topic. It just isn't important right then. See how these phrases connect? All that and besides means extra. Besides that adds more details. Notice how they all tie together? All that and more points to extra benefits, while in addition to that provides further information. Beside the point, that means something doesn't belong in the conversation. If something is beside the point, it's not connected to what you're talking about. So when do you think these phrases would be useful? Consider your daily situations. What's something great that comes with a little extra? What's something that has hidden issues? Can you name something fantastic that also has a bonus feature? Maybe there's something with secret flaws. And what's a moment where someone completely missed the point? Or a time when someone didn't grasp the main idea at all?